Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker have been training together this week. Izzy posted footage of the two sparring a few days ago. It looks like Izzy and Rob are also filming some content for Izzy's YouTube channel. Today, Izzy posted this to X. It says, "Did we just become best friends? Stepbrothers." Robert Whittaker recently gave some insight on how he started training with Izzy. Speaking to the New Zealand Herald, Rob said, "We came to the conclusion that we needed more bodies. We wanted to experience new training styles, and we started looking at our options. We were looking all over the world. Definitely. There's training out there in the States and whatnot. But, like a flash of lightning, I thought City Kickboxing's just across the lake. It's practically home. Why don't we contact them, head over, meet the boys, see if it works. Then maybe we can work something out and try to form a good relationship. There's no way that I thought we'd be here breaking bread, you know? But here we are. The world's a funny place. I'm happy for it because just being open to ideas and broadening horizons, I've met some new boys. I'm getting some new work out of it, and it just keeps things fun, keeps things interesting. You don't want to like a rival. There's a point I make of like not trying to like any other middleweights just because of the potential of fighting them. But I think that door is kind of closed with me and him now training together. I've been in the game so long. He's been in the game. We know what the stakes are. If anything, we know each other better than most other people." Dana White gave his reaction to Khabib getting removed from a plane earlier this week. Dana goes off on Frontier Airlines and doesn't understand why Khabib is flying with them in the first place. On Pardon My Take, Dana said, "What the f is he doing on Frontier Airlines anyway? This kid's got more money than anybody, but that's how humble he is. He's flying on that piece of airline. What do you expect? Khabib doesn't fight anymore because he's got loads of money. I've got to teach Khabib how to charter a plane, especially if you're just going from Vegas to San Francisco." That's how dumb they are at Frontier Airlines. If there's anybody you want in that position, it's Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib shouldn't even know what the Frontier Airlines is, just like most people don't. Viktoria Dudakova has apologized for slapping her coach at UFC Vegas 101 this past weekend. Viktoria lost to Fatima Klein via TKO in the second round, and afterwards slapped her coach in the face and said, "You didn't even come over. You just sat there. That's how little you cared." So it turns out her coach is also her husband. She posted this on Instagram today. She wrote, "The emotions have calmed down a bit. First of all, I would like to apologize to my husband and coach. I was upset that at such a difficult moment, he turned away from me and did not want to go into the cage. This is not an excuse, and I am not looking for an excuse for myself. I did the wrong thing. I could not control my emotions. I set a bad example for athletes and the younger generation. I also want to apologize to sports fans. Thank you to everyone who stays with me in such a difficult situation." Eric Nicksick explains why he was so mad after Chris Curtis lost to Roman Kopylov this past weekend. Curtis lost via TKO in the very last second of the final round, and despite him trying to get back to his feet, the referee stopped the fight. Regardless of the stoppage, Curtis was down on all of the judges' scorecards. On the Verse Us podcast, Eric says despite the stoppage being questionable, he actually wasn't mad over that. He reveals he had a conversation with referee Mark Smith backstage prior to the fight, and Chris Curtis mentioned how Roman Kopylov likes to find ways to stall fights. They questioned him on how he would prevent Kopylov from stalling. Eric claims Mark Smith told him how he would prevent it, however didn't actually go through with it during the fight.
We need to take accountability on our end.
Yeah.
And I said this to Chris immediately after the fight. We should have never been in that position, right?
Yeah.
If you don't want Mark to make that call, then don't get head kicked.
Yeah.
I got to be honest.
Fair enough.
Don't be in that position or that situation to make him make that type of decision. Now, the stoppage was questionable, okay? We're all in agreement to that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the stoppage that I'm mad about. It was the fact that prior to the fight, the referee comes in and asks, "Do you have any questions or concerns?" Chris Curtis went on and said, "This guy will find ways to stall. What are you going to do if and when he does stall? And how are you going to score it? Or how are you going to handle that?" We laid out the game plan on how we're going to attack and approach the game plan. That round one was going to be broken up into two segments. For us, round one was going to be rounds 1 and 2. The way that Chris fights, he starts slow, so I wanted him to pick up the pace. The pace was going to pick up the second half of round 1 into round 2 and basically the start of round 3. But our question was, when we start going downhill and he starts to stall, how are you going to handle it? And we were told something different than the way he handled it in the fight.
Right.
That's what I'm pissed off about. You never get 3 timeouts in a fight.
Khabib Nurmagomedov discusses coaching MMA and when he believes he will walk away from it. Khabib is currently preparing both Islam Makhachev and Umar Nurmagomedov for their upcoming title fights this weekend at UFC 311. Khabib recalls a story recently where a fighter training with him asked him to go home to see his family for the holidays, and Khabib told him if he wants to be the best in the world, family has to wait. Speaking to ESPN, Khabib said, "When these guys finish, I'm going to finish. I hope it's going to be very fast because I'm tired of all this. We were way on top of this game the last 8 years, 7 years since I become champion, and you can even watch the team record. We almost don't lose, and I'm talking about 25 fighters, 25 professional fighters. We fight, we almost don't lose. Everybody fights around the world everywhere. Japan, Middle East, Europe, US, South America. We're fighting in everywhere in this world, and we almost don't lose. We have so many belts. We have so many champions in so many different organizations, and all about because of sacrifice. All these guys, they were with me. They were with my father when I was beginning. When I finish, a couple of guys finished with me already finished. There are like 6, 7, 8 on a very high level. They're still there. When they finish, I'm going to finish too. I can describe this in one word, all about sacrifice. People talk about discipline, but sometimes discipline is not enough. All about sacrifice. A couple of days ago, maybe 1 week ago, one guy, he's from Mexico. He trained with us. We allowed him to come. We don't allow anybody to come in our team because we have enough sparring partners. You can look at anybody. Champion, champion, champion. We don't need nobody. We have almost 30 killers inside one gym. Why we have to invite some people? He comes to me like, hey, in holidays, I want to go to Mexico. And I told him, brother, Mexico, your family, everybody have to wait if you want to become the best in the world. You have to be inside the room. Same thing. If you want to be the best, there is no family. If you want to spend time with your family, kids, okay, be with them. You're going to become the best family man. I'm not against family people. I just say, if you want to become the best in this business, you have to sacrifice. Sacrifice your time, sacrifice your health, and sacrifice everything good you have. Other way, I don't know. I was in this game not only like coach, but like fighter too. When people try to talk with me, give me some excuse what they have to do, I just say this guy, he can be just a regular fighter, like thousands and thousands of other people. Just regular fighter. He's going to make money, he's going to be good, but he's never going to be a champion. Eddie Alvarez and Michael Bisping discuss having high-profile fights and coming up short. On the Believe You Me podcast, Eddie reflects on being the UFC lightweight champion and getting TKO'd by Conor McGregor. Bisping compares it to his fight against George St. Pierre, where Bisping was the UFC middleweight champion and got choked out in the 3rd round. Eddie Alvarez fights Jeremy Stevens at BKFC's Knucklemania 6 event on January 25th.
I think for me, it wasn't so much the fight with Conor that was overwhelming. It was my change in lifestyle being UFC champion that was overwhelming for me. If I could go back in retrospect, I would have given myself a little bit of time to digest it before I actually fought as a defending champion. The whole whirlwind of media, of obligations and all that, I never wanted it. I wanted the money and I wanted the belt. I never understood, I didn't understand that world of media, of obligations, of having to be somewhere and talk about the fight. So Conor was excellent at that. He was well trained at it. And, it's something that I guess I forgave myself, but in my competitive career, it's very difficult because although I know it's not who I am, how I competed in this one night, it is how you're defined by a large audience because maybe that audience only seen you that one time. So I'll never be able to truly digest it in a good way, but it happened. It was an experience I had, and the fight week was fun. The build up was fun. I would have liked to compete better, Yeah.
Do you know what? Let me just jump in there real quick, Paul. I know exactly what you're talking about, Eddie, because when I fought George St. Pierre, I didn't have him talking but the sheer magnitude of the event, I was also a champion as well. And, I come from a very working class background. So it felt weird. There was a little bit of imposter syndrome, perhaps, or whatever. Obviously, I'd fought all over the world and I'd been main events, but never something that kind of spectacle. And even though I was super experienced, I kind of feel that the moment did kind of affect me as well.
Rafael Fiziev is eager to get back into the octagon. His last fight was against Mateusz Gamrot back in September of 2023, and he lost via TKO in the second round due to a knee injury. Fiziev had a torn ACL and just recently was medically cleared to return. On X, he wrote, "I've accepted fights in September, December, January, and February against 4 different opponents, yet I still don't have a date. I'm working hard and can't wait to step back into the octagon. It's been way too long." Belal Muhammad went off on Sean Strickland. Belal and Sean have had beef for a while now. A few months ago, Sean left this comment under a post about Belal. It says, "Belal looks like why I have to take my shoes off in airports." And earlier this month, Sean posted this to X. He wrote, "America is a country of Christ. You could be Christian, Catholic, atheist, but our core values is that of Christ. I have nothing against Islam or Muslims, but Islam should stay in Islamic countries, although you would all benefit from Christ. I'm agnostic." Belal reposted that. He wrote, "Wasn't this the guy crying because his Christian American dad used to touch him?" Sean is currently scheduled to face Dricus du Plessis for the middleweight title at UFC 312. Belal not only hopes that Sean gets knocked out, but hopes he doesn't wake up. Belal says he wants to fight Sean himself, whether he beats Dricus or not. Speaking to Submission Radio, Belal said, "I hope he loses. I hope he gets knocked out and put unconscious and doesn't wake up. But regardless, I would always still want to move up and fight him whether he has the belt or not. That will always be a fight that I say yes to. It's personal. The guy's just an airhead. He's literally the definition of trailer trash. That's what he is. So when he says all this dumb stuff, people need to make him pay for it. The Twitter people are happy to see it, and he knows it because he can't get attention other than saying dumb things. So he has to say stupid, wild stuff because nobody cares about him without it. He's kind of like Colby Covington. Nobody cared about him before he started saying dumb stuff. Strickland is trying to level it up even more so he could have that wow factor because his fights suck. He always talks about, "I'm going to kill this guy. We're going to go to war." And it's literally just a teep fest. I think he knows that he sucks, so that's why he goes out there and says this dumb stuff. Dana White gave updates on both Conor McGregor and Jon Jones today. Starting with Conor, Dana says he will not be boxing Logan Paul or KSI. Dana said he hopes Conor returns to the UFC in the fall. On Jon Jones, Dana said he's very confident that the Tom Aspinall fight happens this year. Dana said, "We're in the works. We're talking on it. I've said that I'm very confident that fight happens this year. Nothing is holding it up. It's just a matter of getting it done. It's not as easy to put these types of fights together as people think they are. They take time, but we'll get it done." And that's going to wrap it up for the news. Thanks for watching. For daily MMA news and content, subscribe to Full Mount MMA and click the bell icon to be notified when we post videos. Here are the 3 top comments from last video. The first one's from Ryzen1X. It says the entire MMA community wants to see Yuri get this KO. The second one says praying that Yuri scores the quickest KO in history. And the final one says Jamal Hill after getting KO'd by Yuri. My foot was a balloon. Those were the 3 top comments from last video. If you want to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. And if you missed yesterday's news, click the video on screen right now to get caught up.